Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Azure Developer CLI Community Call. We absolutely apologize for being a little bit late. We had a few technical difficulties, but we are all up and running now. So welcome. Joined here today with Kristen and Grace, as usual. Say hello.
Hello. Hey, Liam. Hey, everyone. Welcome.
How are you doing? How you doing?
Pretty good. I am talking a little loud today. If you guys still notice problems with my mic, let me know. One of the many technical difficulties we've experienced this morning.
One of the few, but it's okay. It's okay. We will power through. So yes, welcome. This is the August Community Call, and we have got some great speakers and some great content to cover. So Grace, what is up next? What's on our agenda today?
As usual, we'll do a quick introduction, who's on the team. We'll give a shout out to the community contributors for this past month. And then we have 3 demos, Cory Waddingham from Pinecone, Brady Gaster, who is a PM here at Microsoft working on .NET, and then Christian Lechner, a superstar community contributor. He's always watching the community calls. Today he's a part of it, and he's going to be sharing his story of using AZD. And so, as usual, this is our team. You can find us all on GitHub. You can find some of us on X. Reach out if you ever want to talk about something. And as always, just a quick thank you to our community contributors. We have UGS Sun remove some extra white space in one of our templates bicep files. And then Wes Haggard updated storage publishing to use... why can't I think of what MI stands for right now?
Managed identity.
Managed identity. Thank you.
Lovely stuff. So just want to pause there just very quickly. Just a quick reminder for everybody in the community that if you want your name to be on this and have a nice shout out, then please do get contributing. This again is open source. We've got some fantastic ways for you to contribute, and these are just a few. So if you're watching, you're wondering, stay tuned and we'll show you exactly how. So Kristen, do you want to introduce our first speaker?
Yes, I am so excited to have Cory join us today. So Cory is from Pinecone, and we've been working together with Pinecone. It feels like for several months now. It's a pleasure. We get to meet every Friday and hang out. And now here we are live together. How are you today, Cory?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. This is very exciting. And I gotta say, working with you and Grace and Liam over the last few months, it's just been awesome. And having our meetings on Fridays is like the perfect end of the week.
I know. I don't have any meetings on Friday except for when we come together for Pinecone. So it's kind of like a focus day, but then we get to focus on all the technical topics of the Pinecone templates that we've been working on and that you've been building. You've been doing such an amazing job. And it's not only great templates for our community to use, but it's also been pivotal in the feedback that you've given us and how we can even make AZD better, which is one of my favorite things about collaborating and seeing how people use AZD in real life. And that's what you're going to talk about today.
That's right. Yeah.
So can you start off by telling us a little bit more about Pinecone and then share your template that you've been working on with the audience today?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. So Pinecone, for those who don't know, we started as a vector database company where our sole product was a vector database designed to perform semantic similarity search across vector embeddings. We've since kind of grown beyond that. The vector DB is still a very important part of the product line, but we do have new products as well. We have our own hosted models for both inference as well as re-ranking. And we also have the Pinecone Assistant, which will be part of the demo today, which is essentially RAG in a box. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through.
Cool.
All right, so what does it take to build a really great Gen AI application? Well, first off, you need to be consistently fast and answer questions accurately. And second, it needs to be commercially viable. So you have to keep costs low and be able to respond quickly to market changes by deploying new data. And your time to value needs to be kept as short as possible. You need to be up and running and getting your product in front of customers. Legacy DBs aren't well suited to these needs. For one, they tend to use the wrong algorithms in their vector search implementations. And because the architecture isn't shared across multiple other applications, you end up having to use excess hardware, making it costly to serve your application. This in turn leads to operational burden on the developers who end up having to spend much of their time working as sysadmins or DBAs instead of shipping code and product features. So how do you address all these concerns? Well, you want a better algorithm, one tailor-made for fast, efficient vector search. You also want to decouple storage and compute resources, so you're only paying for what you actually need. And you have to have automatic scaling of the database to avoid rebuilding your infrastructure as you grow. So that's where Pinecone Serverless comes in. We use a proprietary geometric search algorithm which consistently outperforms HNSW while providing lower overall cost. You don't have to provision any hardware. You literally just need an API key and your index is ready in seconds. And by paying only for what you use, you can keep your monthly bills manageable. Now, vector search is just part of the equation. You also need to process your documents and data, creating embeddings from the raw data itself. You need to create search vectors for your queries and re-rank results to make sure that you're only sending the most relevant answers. And you also need knowledge source attribution, so your customers can have confidence in the answers that they're getting back from their questions. So Pinecone has a suite of products to handle all these needs. Obviously, there's the vector database. That is what we started with. But now there's a lot more to it. I mentioned we have the Pinecone Inference as well as Pinecone Assistant. Inference is our collection of hosted models that provide a simple API to create your embeddings and re-rank your results. And we're coming out with more models in the future. So today we have inference, re-rank. We'll have additional models coming online throughout the next coming months. And Pinecone Assistant, that's what we're going to be demonstrating today. So with Assistant, you can have a fully functional RAG application up and running in just a few minutes. It's simple, it's easy. You just add your text files or PDF files, a simple API call, and you're ready to go. Excuse me. And so it does this by encapsulating the other Pinecone services within itself. You don't have to pick an LLM or train it. You don't have to create embeddings. You don't even have to have an existing Pinecone index. When your assistant comes online, all of these are handled for you. All you have to do is tie your application to the assistant, and you're all set. So let's see how you can launch Pinecone Assistant on Azure with an ACD template. So here we have a GitHub code space, which if you follow the link to our repo, you can run the code space on your own. We're just going to go from scratch here. So we're going to follow the commands and start the project. So first I'll go ahead and log in. I'll do this on another screen, just a second. Okay. Getting my subscriptions. All right, now let's go ahead and run the npm-i to install Node. We'll set up our environment. And we'll call this example assistant. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and run AZD provision. As anybody who's run AZD in the past knows, this may take a little time. So as this starts running, we're just going to go ahead and swap over to a pre-configured assistant. This is the same code. It was just run earlier today, so it's already up and running. So here we have the assistant window. I've uploaded 2 files to this, 10K files from both Microsoft and NVIDIA. These are just examples. You can upload any other documents that are important to your application. We're just going to start with these 2. So we'll just ask a simple question. So behind the scenes, Assistant is creating a vector embedding for that query, running against its own index. getting the nearest neighbor results. It's going to send that back to the model that was trained with these files, and it's going to come back with an answer here in just a second. And that's it. It is that simple. Within minutes, you can have an entire application up and running with very little knowledge and very little setup beforehand.
That's super cool. So, Cory,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit more about, you said like the provisioning time can take a minute for the application. What is the application time for deployment now for this application? Do you recall?
Yeah, so all told, it averages around 5 to 10 minutes.
Cool. Okay. And then, okay, so cold start, somebody would be able to take this template and see a working demo in about 5 to 10 minutes.
That's right.
Cool. And then, so you have this working demo, then how do you take this to the next step and make this your own and have more context around chatting? And can you talk a little bit more about like some of the things that you might do with this application from here?
Yeah, so you have a couple options. So there's 2 ways to add files to this. Simplest is on the command line. We provide an upload file utility as part of the package. If you put any files in your local assets directory, it'll automatically upload those. Any new ones, it'll keep track of the ones that's already seen, and it'll add those as context to the assistant. You can go into the Pinecone console itself and add or delete files from within that directly. So if you have to deprecate something, that would be the way to do it. What this could be used for would be, suppose you have a support organization that has a lot of internal policies and procedures. When to give customers refunds, when to escalate, what kind of problems are typically seen by your customers and solutions for them. You can put all of those into text or PDF files, add them to your assistant, and now you have a full-blown support chatbot for your customers. And again, we're talking 5 to 10 minutes from initial login to application up and running.
Really cool.
Yeah,
this is really cool. And so if you're already on Azure and just getting started with Pinecone, how can you want to tell our listeners about how to get set up in making sure they're as successful as possible with an account so that this template works for them?
Yeah, so you may have noticed I put in my Pinecone API key, which I'm going to go and delete after this during the demo. So that's really the only thing you need from Pinecone. So if you go to app.pinecone.io, sign in. If you haven't created an account yet, just create an account. You can use your GitHub or Microsoft credentials as well if you want. On the API keys page, simply create a new key. Once it's been displayed, make sure you copy that because we're not going to show it again for security reasons. So copy it, store it somewhere safe, and then just add that to your environment. And that's it. Everything else is done for you.
Cool. All right. We put a link here in the chat for all of our listeners. And this is really cool. Thank you for showing the template and sharing more about Pinecone. I'm sure that as questions come in from the chat, you'll be able to see them on YouTube and connect with some new people. Thank you so much, Cory.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
See ya. All right. Next up, we have Brady. Brady, how are you?
Good. How's it going? You guys having a good day?
Good. Yeah. Nice to see you.
Cool. You too. Yeah.
Awesome to have you on the call.
Yeah, it's exciting to be here. I'm one of the biggest AZD fans out there. I've been using it for, oh Lord, I think since John spiked it throughout the different dev phases of it. And now that we've done Aspire and get along so well with the AZD team, it's been a lot of fun to make some easy buttons for customers. So I was going to show you some stuff today with it. So, but definitely taking an AZD first stance rather than an Aspire first stance, given the
cool.
So.
Well, take it away, but also maybe set up the context for anyone who doesn't know about Aspire, exactly what Aspire is.
Totally, I can do that. So at its heart, Aspire is right here. You can see on my screen. I've got the docs pulled up. If I were to click on the overview, this really sums it up well. Aspire is a stack, if you will. It's a series of not only NuGet packages, but tooling and experiences and stuff that we'll be shipping with 9 around Aspire scaffolders that like kind of inject code into your app for you to kind of make it easy for folks to build, production ready distributed applications. At first we were saying cloud native, but a lot of folks, can, build these applications and deploy them in, local environments as well. The idea behind Aspire is if you've got a scenario where, node A needs to talk to node B, you've got a front end that talks to a back end, any kind of an application where you've got a microservices or like what's the term? Monolith structure. Aspire is really great for that. But we had this is our docs repo, or this is our docs set, so you can see all the different documentations, and we even have some stuff down here on deployment, specifically to Azure using AZD. And our premier kind of way to do deployment to Azure using AZD is to deploy to container apps. And what we've done is we've worked closely with the AZD team so that you can do, .NET New Aspire Starter, CD into the directory, do AZD up, and you're off and running. Or AZD init, then AZD up, then you're off and running. So it really is automatic, and that's kind of what you call our easy button. The idea being that we wanted to really make it easy for .NET developers to build distributed applications and deploy them into containerized environments. And our favorite containerized path, ACA, containerized. We also rebuilt some of the publishing stuff on top of AZD from within Visual Studio. So today, if you right-click Publish inside of Visual Studio, if you were to right-click on what's called the App Host project, which is essentially your kind of orchestration, we'll get to in a minute. You, instead of having to deploy 1, 2, 3 individual apps to container apps or projects to container apps, you can essentially right-click Publish your App Host project and deploy it all at once. So that makes it a lot easier for folks. Yeah, and that's just sits on top of AZD. So that's kind of cool. But, one of the things that, let me go ahead and also call out, this is our fantastic Aspire repo. Aspire is open source. If you are working with it, feel free to drop us an issue, as 737 other people have. We're willing to take pull requests. We're working actively with a lot of, other clouds and other, third-party devs who want to write what we call Aspire integrations. We were formerly calling them components. We're not calling them integrations, because they just make it easier for you to integrate with other things like databases, Redis, et cetera, et cetera. So this is our repo. I do want to call this out, but we had a question at a recent conference where we were talking about Aspire. It was a panel conversation. What if I have an existing application, and I'm already happy with where I'm deploying? One of the things that it looks like is that I have to adopt this AZD deployment methodology. I have to adopt ACA or Kubernetes. What if I just have a simple 2-tier, application, like, a web app that talks to a database? A lot of folks get started like that. Do I have to change everything? And the answer to that question was no. We told people in the panel, said theoretically, if you already have a .NET Core application you're deploying, say, app service, and it just talks to a database, you could wire up Aspire just, to have a local development experience. So you could have everything, and, things would start up, independently, and just not change any of your deployment stuff, and it would still work. So to represent that, Jason and our friend Shane worked on this great AZD template. This is in the awesome AZD collection. It's essentially a Blazor web app with C# and SQL database. So this is really your basic, traditional, .NET 2-tier app where you've got a front end that talks directly to a back end, not a recommendation. Okay. Nor is most of what I'm going to show you today. So I'll get into that in a second. But this is the repo that I started from, and this is what it looks like when I deploy it. So just like with other AZD templates, I could literally just go in here and say AZD init from this repo, do an AZD up, and Bob's my uncle, I'm off and running. And this is actually the deployed look and feel inside of the portal, and this is what the app looks like. And you can see here, if I were to go over here to this auth required area, see that I've been authenticated. This will show me my sample user. This application uses a SQL Server database and ASP.NET Identity. So it's really just your front end and your back end, auth database. Not much to it. But what I had done is I actually deployed that, and I started thinking, what if I wanted to kind of reap the benefits of building an application with Aspire locally using Visual Studio? One of the great things about Aspire is that you can just hit F5 and everything spins up. You know what I mean? So I wanted to kind of walk through what that would look like today. And again, I do want to point out this is a bit of a slippery slope, to be frank. This is really for folks who already have their cloud environment set up. They're happy with the way things work with AZD, because why wouldn't they be? They're already on .NET 8, but they're thinking of using Aspire like for development purposes or to kind of move into the next phase. There's a lot of stuff that happens automatically or automatically when you use Aspire and AZD in a containerized environment that you won't get if you were deploying kind of the way I'm showing you today. This is really to kind of show you how you could work back from an existing code base and retrofit Aspire to it, so that it's, you have a more, slipstream dev experience.
Yeah, I think that's a common experience too. We get that question a lot. How do I start if I already have an application that's deployed?
Right, exactly. It's like I spent 2 weeks getting to work. You know what I mean? I don't want to break it now. So essentially, we've added tools inside of Visual Studio that I'll show you, and I've gone through this once or twice to try to get it down pat. It's not down pat yet, so expect errors. But I'll right-click right here, and you'll see that in Visual Studio we have this great feature right here that I could right-click a project and say Add .NET Aspire Orchestrator Support. I'm going to go ahead, and I would use Zoom it, but like all manner of bad things would happen, so I'm not going to do that today. So I'll go ahead and click .NET Aspire Orchestrator Support, and what it's going to do is it's going to say, I see that you have this, directory structure, this tree here. It looks like you've put this web project in this web folder. And what I want to do is, probably back up one directory. Is that right? Yeah, that's where I want to be. I want to be in source, because I want essentially my app host project and my service defaults or my defaults projects to kind of be, parallel to that web folder. So source is good here. So I'll click OK. You'll see that it's laid down these projects. And it's done a little wire up, and it's gone ahead and given me the, what you can do next with this stuff page, which is helpful. It kind of shows you the different deployment stuff that we've got and some other stuff. So what I'll also show you is this is my web project. This, we didn't really make any changes here. If I were to open this up, there's probably one change that would be right around here. Map default endpoints is going to be one of them. And then I think that might be the only one. I think that's the only one that we drop in. But that gets injected automatically when you do that add Aspire orchestration. That's the only, we know where to put that code. The other project that you get is this app host. And I'll go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. And, right now, Aspire can't necessarily interrogate my project and go, oh, I'm going to add all the, integrations you need. But what I can do is I can actually add those integrations. Now, this is going to need a couple. It's going to need Key Vault. It's going to need some Azure hosting components or integrations. And then it's going to need some stuff for, SQL. So what I'll do now is I'll just kind of right-click this project. I'm going to say add .NET Aspire package. And what I'll do first, you'll see here that we actually do a filtration. So now you'll only see packages that are specific to Aspire projects. Again, we call them Aspire integrations. These are hosting integrations because they're going to go in my app host project. So what I'll do first is I'll select, I need this one, Aspire hosting.azure. I'm going to have to hit I accept. I'm going to need Aspire hosting.SQL Server because it's going to set up SQL stuff for me. I'm going to need Key Vault in here as well. I can find that one. Do a search. There we go. There's Key Vault, and I think that's it. I think that's all I'll need at this point. Let me actually just open up my CS Proj and just double check against my cheat sheet. Outpost, Key Vault, Azure, Key Vault, SQL Server. Oh, I need one more. I forget this one all the time. Azure hosting SQL. So I'll just do SQL right here.
The benefits of having a cheat sheet. We should always have a cheat sheet to help.
I just forget the list sometimes. So here we go. Azure SQL. So that's the
you
one
and me both.
Yeah, exactly. So I've installed all those necessary packages. Now we're pretty much good to go. Now what I would do here, and I'm just going to make this easy so I don't mess it up. I'm going to copy from my cheat sheet since I've admitted that I already have one. Actually, I'll just type it. So right here, what I want to do first is kind of come up with my database. So I'll just call this, my SQL server. And that's, you can imagine my actual, server itself. And I'll just say builder dot add SQL server, SQL server, and I'll just call this for now SQL server. We'll just give it the same name. Now, we have this kind of concept of like running as one thing and then publishing as another thing. So if I were to run this locally, I'm going to run this SQL server in a container. But if I wanted to publish it, obviously I want to continue to use that SQL Server database that I already have out in the cloud. So I would do publish as Azure SQL database. And that's going to get more interesting. We're going to have a lot more cooler APIs here when, the Azure SDK team kind of ships some additional middleware that we're going to have soon, but just stay tuned. We'll get to that soon. And then the next thing I would do is I would say var SQL is equal to SQL Server. I would say .add database, and we'll call this something very explicit. Now, what I would do here in most cases is I would give it, the name like of the database that I was going to connect to, or the connection string name that I want. But in this case, I've already got a connection string named in my app settings file because I've already got a published database. Now, this isn't the real database connection. This is just one that runs locally on my computer, but you'll see that I'm going to copy out that default connection string name and paste it right here. And at this point, what I would do is I would go here and I would say with reference and just pass in SQL. And now I'm pretty much done. I've basically wired up my app host. Now, at this point, if I were to use the AZD init, AZD up stuff, what's going to happen is that this node of my application is going to be essentially turned into a container app. Okay, I don't necessarily want that to happen because I'm already publishing this to an app service. I'm only using Aspire for my local development stuff. So the way you would mitigate that is right here. We have another piece of middleware, exclude from manifest. So it's essentially whenever somebody does a run on an Aspire project, we output a JSON file that's called an Aspire manifest. And that manifest is a JSON representation of their entire topology. What this does is this says, don't put the web in it. Really, all I'm going to care about is that, SQL Server or any changes that I'm going to make. I've already got a deployment methodology. This is just so I can dev locally. That makes sense?
Right.
Okay.
Totally.
You wouldn't want that when you move into if I were to add an API here and now I'm going to want that automatic orchestration instead of adding another app service, I might want to start messing around with containers. At that point, I would take this out, and then that manifest would include that compute layer as well. So with all that said, I would pretty much do the same thing over here, but I'm going to make this a little bit easier and just go into my CS proj, and I'm going to copy from my cheat sheet. Actually, I'm not going to do that. That would be dumb. There's one little bug I think I might have worked through last night, but if I right click here and say add Aspire package, oh, that's good. That's going to work for me today. I had an issue last night where it wouldn't open the second time for some strange reason. So what I'll do now in this one is I'm going to need, aspire.security.keyvault. Let me make sure I've got the right one. Yeah, I'm going to need this one. And this
so we
is
have a
essentially
question here, Brady, that's come up. Can I deploy the SQL Server and database to use managed identity for clients?
Yes, you can. You can indeed. We don't augment that support. We don't necessarily make it. We're going to use managed identity whenever the service supports it. You know what I mean? And whenever your code supports it. So there are versions of EF that will not support managed identity, as well as there's a bit of a process to go through when you want to connect your application to a SQL Server using managed identity. We're doing most of that. I don't know if we're closing the complete gap in SQL Server. I believe we are. I know that we are for all the other areas. But really, as long as that service and tier support it, we're going to enforce it. So
yeah, exactly. It's a big transformation.
It is. But we are moving in the direction of that being everywhere. I can definitely tell you that. I know that when you
the templates as well, going through each template.
We are indeed. We're actually going through everything. I'm going to be writing some what's new content today to that end. Now, hopefully at this point, this should just work. I apologize if it doesn't, but at this point, what you'll see is that my app host is marked as my runnable project. These two are no longer marked as, or web is no longer marked as the runnable one. I believe I've done everything I need to do in here. There might be one or two changes I would need to make to my code later on, but let me just try it. ENF5. Now, what's good that you didn't see me do was go into my infra folder. I haven't changed anything about my deployment. I haven't done any of that stuff, and we already know that works because we've already seen the deployed application. But what's cool is now I can just hit F5 and kind of run the whole thing. Oh, of course, that's going to happen. So I probably got one sort of error here. I'd have to figure out what that error is. I might not have pulled in the SQL into this thing. Let me actually try that. Let me see if I've missed something here. Sorry, guys. Builder, add. SQL Server. Yeah, I'm probably gonna forget it now. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but there's probably one or two more changes I need to make in here, but you can see that we're in the right direction. You know what I mean? I hadn't gotten this demo completely wired up for our show today, but the idea here is that we would start with an existing application, and we would basically work back from that existing application, add Aspire to it, so that we make our development process, easier. But we don't necessarily have to change anything about our deployment because that's already working out fine. Let me make sure I've got all the components. Do I have everything I need in that component layer? Did I miss one? Let me look here. Sorry.
Yeah, we're all looking with you.
Oh, here we go. No, that's not so bad. I could swear I had it all. Look here. Look at web. Did I get SQL? How do you remember SQL? Let me look and make sure. Sorry about that. Add Aspire package. Did I get them all? I think I got them all. Let me make that one. Oh, I got that one too. Maybe not. Let's try that. Maybe that's the one that I was missing.
Let's see.
Yeah, let's see. Sorry, y'all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially have a pull request back to this main repo so that people can actually see the changes that I made. Yeah, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I'm not sure. Oh, I didn't do use SQL Server, so I could figure that out. But I'll put a repo out, and I'll give Kristen a link to it. Sorry for the error. Like I said, I was kind of running on this last night.
I think it leaves it to be continued. Go check out the template, and we'll drop the link here for folks that are watching this on replay. And then, I think this is really cool. This is a question that a lot of people come to us with, Brady, and so this is a great way to go through the process of how to approach that problem in real life.
Yep. And this was really inspired by one of our customers pinged one of the other PMs on the team and said that they had done an exercise where they wanted to open up their existing project that they were already deploying to app service, and everything was working, and basically change none of their application code, but just add Aspire to it and then have it work. Like I said, I was able to get it working once or twice last night. I can't remember what my steps were now, so I do apologize. I'll make a video and put it out so people can see it. But again, this is not guidance. This is just if you want to rub Aspire on your development experience and you've already got a deployment story, we just wanted to kind of show you could try it out. So
this is cool. Well, we'll have you back. We love having you on the show, so we'll have to cook up some more magic that you can show in a future show. And yeah, definitely share the video. We'll follow up here with the links for everybody, including to the templates, to the video, and to the pull request, so you can follow along at home.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Brady. Good to see you.
You too.
All right. Up next, we have Christian. Welcome, Christian. How are you?
Hi, Kristen. I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you. We're excited that you've come on the show today to share a little bit more about your story with AZD. You're probably one of our most frequent viewers for sure of the show. And you've been on the show before, right? And you've done another demo?
No.
Nope, just in the comments.
So. I don't think so. Just in the comments, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that you're a very active member and you've been invaluable in giving us feedback on the composability. So that kind of goes into some of the things Brady was talking about. How do you take an existing app with AZD and start to change the things that you would like to add to the application? So from a non-Aspire lens. So luckily we have you here today officially in official capacity to share your story around AZD, and we are excited. So I'm going to just give you the floor and let you talk about AZD and how you're using it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And thanks for having me and giving me the opportunity. So this is kind of my typical slide. Then I start talking about AZD. It's about this one command that we have seen already today, AZD up, the one command to rule them all. Now, why did I start with AZD? Why did I take a look at AZD? Well, first of all, let me shortly introduce myself, because that might bring some more context about the stuff that I will say later. So I'm working at SAP as a development architect, currently heavily focusing on infrastructure as code. I'm working on the Terraform provider there. And on the other hand, I'm also a Microsoft MVP. So I'm kind of living in the twilight zone between SAP and Microsoft technologies. And in general, I really love serverless and also AZD, which concept-wise I think are quite similar. And well, kind of my personal mission is to help developers to improve their productivity, make life easier for them, especially as I'm working at SAP in the enterprise context, in the corporate area. And this is probably also the reason why I really fell in love with AZD. And my journey with AZD, when I was invited to the talk, I checked when did I start with AZD, and that was quite surprising to me, 2 years ago, probably even a bit more, where I made my first repo looking at AZD, trying things out. And the reason why I was looking at AZD was the story that it came up with. It's as we already heard today, it's easy to bring up applications with AZD and provide the infrastructure, but from my perspective, there is much more which is very interesting in the corporate world, because it really makes the developer's life easier end to end, not only starting with some app templates, not only starting with some infrastructure, but really covering the whole story that you have as a developer, including CI/CD, including setup of your development environment. Because with AZD, you get the dev container, you can work with GitHub code spaces and so on. And from a corporate perspective, or let's say from an ops perspective, with the pre-configured infrastructure, with the pre-configured CI/CD, you can bring in all the requirements that you usually have around all the boring things, compliance, security. And as a developer, you don't have to wrap your head around that. You get that stuff out of the box with AZD. You also get a metadata file that you could use. This Azure YAML file that you see within every project. That contains even more information. You can enrich it with more information that you can then use in your enterprise to keep your stuff up to date, to see what might be working on an outdated template version, and so on and so forth. So for me, the standardization, this whole end-to-end story, that was really appealing to me, and that's why I worked on several projects also together with some folks from you at Microsoft on delivering templates and on delivering samples. Now, 2 highlights maybe before I go to the samples that we created. Over the journey of 2 years, a lot have happened within AZD. And I think 2 highlights from my perspective is, first of all, the hooks topic. So you can bring in your scripts at defined points within the lifecycle or the flow of AZD. And second, the AZD Easy Init that we just kind of touched a bit in the Aspire demo that you just saw. Because, of course, if you start greenfield, everything is cool. You use AZD, you get your templates in, you are completely compliant with AZD. Now, if you already have apps and you want to bring in AZD because it makes sense to you, you had to do some manual steps in the past. Not rocket science, but there are manual steps that you had to do that might mess up your app. And now you have this AZD Easy Init available, which already can be used to create an AZD compliant project based on your code. And that's really cool. There are also some details, some really cool details about that, like leveraging cloud native build packs for creating your Docker files, which is also, again, another aspect. Cloud native build packs are default build packs. They are curated. You can use them within your enterprise. It's not like crafting some Docker files and stitching them together. So that's absolutely cool. And with that in mind, together with my partner in crime, Martin Pankratz, shout out to him from Microsoft, we wanted to share this with the folks who are also working in this twilight zone between SAP and Microsoft. And what we did is we created some basic app living in the app service that is AZD compliant. And that enhances the SAP system by leveraging the SAP Cloud SDK. Now, if you don't know what SAP is, it's kind of the backbone for, I would say, nearly every business. So you have all your business data in there, you have no business processes in there, And you don't want to pollute that stuff with extensions, with some business extensions that you want to build. So you build them outside of the system, and this is one way how to do it, or how you could do it. And in order to connect to the SAP system, we have this SAP Cloud SDK. Details, you can forget about them afterwards. Now, there are two things that we heard from customers that are important for them. First of all, the basic AZD setup already has some, I would say, important stuff in there for building cloud-native apps, like having analytics in place, having Key Vault in place in order to have your secrets stored at a safe place. But there are two more things that customers requested to us. First of all, there should be an API management in front of the SAP system with some policies so that the extension does not bring down the system by accident. And the second one was there should be a registration, an app registration within Entra ID to authorize the access of the app by the API management. And well, both things aren't there out of the box for AZD, but the beauty of AZD is that you could enhance it in a very compliant way. And this API management stuff, this is something that you can do in your template. So that's super, super easy. So if we take a look how we did that, we adopted the file structure that, or the directory structure that is already there within every AZD project. And we separated the stuff that we built in a separated directory. And for API, we just then used now here the Terraform flavor to bring in, let me shortly check here, a policy out of the box. Now that's not much from a coding perspective, but from an enterprise perspective, that's really huge. Because as a developer, I can build my app and I can be assured that if I deploy something, all those policies that are needed within the API management are in place. That's one part of the story. Now, the second part of the story, which is even more cool from my perspective, is about hooks. So in order to do the Entra ID registration, we have been provided by a script, to be honest, from some folks at Microsoft that are working in the Entra ID or Azure AD area before. And they provided that one. And I don't know how you are doing with Entra ID, but for me, it's black magic. And after having the script, it's even more black magic. But this script really does all the stuff that needs to be done in order to get this app registration into Entra ID and bring it or bring it together with the app management. And this is something that couldn't be done via Terraform or via Bicep. So this is something where you really need the dynamics that hooks bring in, this option to flexible setups during runtime. And that's, from my perspective, an absolute highlight. Yeah, so with that, you can see that even if you are not working in the purely Azure area, but you have to kind of enhance SAP or something like that, even then AZD gives you the full experience, so to say, and you can very easily enhance it. We also built this sample for another compute option. So here it's the app service. We did the same for a function app to have some serverless spin there. Here we have been a bit lazy, so we omitted the Entra ID registration, but that would be just copy and paste. So if you're interested, I think the links are shared in the chat to take a look how things work here and what you can do with the hook scripts. Then I think those samples are really valuable. And then, last but not least, we also had the honor to give a hands-on session with quite some participants at TechEd. Think about TechEd of the analogy of Microsoft Build for the SAP developer world. And what we did was, again, bring together the SAP world, as you can see here, with the business technology platform, with the Microsoft world. And folks that are doing the hands-on are mainly focused on developing SAP. So what we wanted to show them is, it's not super difficult. It's right easy with AZD to set things up and get things going. And to make a long story short, the hands-on session was definitely a success. And folks really brought then up an app that had all those bits and pieces in place and had this extension here on the side via a Microsoft Azure function. Now, again, we had to do some hoop magic, to be honest with you, in order to, first of all, get the URL of the function app in order to do the configuration. That's kind of something that we did after the deployment of the app. And just for the sake of being able to do it, we did that via a Terraform script. Probably you would do that with a command line, but we thought, as the hands-on was about Terraform, that would be quite funny to do it via an embedded Terraform script that has to be executed after the deployment of the app, because before that you don't get the URL. So that was one part. And the second part is not perfectly fitting enterprise-grade development, but might be quite cool for doing demos and hands-on, because we used the post-provision point in time in order to fire up an ASCII firework. So as soon as every participant was deploying or provisioning the resources on Azure, when that was finished successfully, this script got fired, and in the terminal of the folks, then a little ASCII firework fired up. So if you're interested in that stuff and maybe want to annoy some folks with that in a build pipeline, then yeah, that's something to look at. I think that link was also shared in the chat. And yeah, with that, I'm already at the end. So I hope with this short and crisp walkthrough, I could show you that with AZD, it's not only Azure, you can bring a lot of things together, and it's not only, at least from my perspective, making things easy, but it's really a benefit for companies, for corporates to adopt AZD or adopt the AZD flow and bring up all those curated bits and pieces and make the life of their developers easier to not have to wrap their head around how to do infrastructure, how to do naming conventions, and so on and so forth.
That's amazing. I really like this diagram, and it kind of makes me think about asking you if you could summarize the number one biggest benefit for using AZD in an enterprise, what would that be? And I ask because a lot of our templates are people getting started and making it their own. And as Brady mentioned earlier, like when you have a greenfield project or you're starting from something small, it's easy. But when you're in an enterprise context, that's the opposite. You have a lot of complexity, a lot of teams, a lot of things to coordinate, and you have standards and ways of doing things in your specific enterprise. So can you kind of give a summarization of exactly how AZD helps in the enterprise context?
So as you said, within enterprises and corporates, all those standards, all those stuff that you have to wrap your head around as a developer, break your head. So you have to, basically what you're paid for is building business applications, right? So that's what you get your paycheck for. It's not about, also it might be cool, thinking about how to set up a CD pipeline, how to make that compliant, how to set up infrastructure. What are the compliant bits and pieces that you can use? What are the configurations that you should use within your enterprise? So from my perspective, the biggest benefit of using AZD is, with AZD, you have the option to standardize that stuff as a platform team, however you want to call that, provide that to your developers, and the developers can, again, focus on what they should focus on. AZD provides, from my perspective, for this undertaking, this very well-defined flow. You have the structure of your project, you have the metadata file, you have the great templates that you just mentioned within the template gallery that give you an idea, that give you some inspiration on how to do stuff. And then you have this bits and pieces like hooks that allow you to flexibly put in some more steps, like here, this Entra ID registration that are needed within the enterprise field, but that you could not do during design time or during template crafting. You have to do that dynamically. So bring in those scripts. They are, again, curated by our team. And as a developer, you just have, as we saw, do the AZD up and rule everything with that command.
I love it. What a great way to wrap the beginning right to the end and tie up your talk. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I think even more so, thank you very much for all the feedback that you continue to give the team and that you have been giving the team. It is something that we thrive on, is hearing how things are used in your day-to-day job, how things could be better, and what things you love about using AZD. So thank you very much.
So thanks for having me, and kudos to the team for delivering this great stuff. Absolutely enjoyed.
Thank you, Christian. Well, until next time. Thank you.
Until next time.
All right. Well, Grace and Liam, it's been another great call.
Definitely. Liam, if you're talking, you're muted.
It happens once a day, and this was at the end of the day for me. I love it. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's so great to see how AZD is being used across different sort of, not just industries, but sort of different projects and different aspects of different projects. So there's more to it than just running AZD up and AZD provision. There's more to it than just the commands. It's more than a command line. It's certainly an ecosystem. And we're seeing that more and more. So a huge thank you to the speakers for coming on today and showing us what they've been up to. I mean, this is one of my favorite parts of the month, is having this call and just seeing how it's used, because as a developer, I kind of use it in my own little way, but seeing how others use it, it just is so thought-provoking. It's brilliant. So I guess with that, let's do a quick wrap up. So thank you everybody for sticking along. It's been a brilliant call today, and we have got some wonderful stuff to share in some more calls. So if you want to be a part of the next one or the following ones in this year's round of calls, then scan this QR code, fill out the form, and let us know how you're using AZD, how you're contributing, and what you're up to. And that is the link aks.ms/AZD community call sign up. I'm just going to pop that in the chat there and throw it up on the screen for everybody. So if you want to sign up, then give it a go. And I just realized something. The slide didn't update, but correct me if I'm wrong, Grace, but we have got the next call on the 25th of September.
Yep, that's right. We're basically always the 4th Wednesday of the month. So that's September 25th next month.
Amazing stuff. I absolutely love a routine. This is brilliant.
Makes it easy to remember.
Exactly. And that's what we want. So stick around, and until next time, we will see you then.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.